for small group work, but we still, wait.
Sorry, that's me.
You're good.
Okay, now try.
Okay, thanks. It provides a lot of opportunity for small group work, such as during advisory classes, winter assemblies and such, but we still come together as a school. 3 of our board members have been sorted into houses, and I would love to sort you too if you would be willing. I will give you a tiny bit of info on our houses. I am the head of house of Huruma. Huruma is Swahili for empathy, so we focus a lot about putting ourselves in other people's shoes, really supporting our classmates. We also have Determinaço, which is Portuguese for determination. We have Canatumia, which is Greek for innovation. And then finally, we have Gezellig, which is Dutch for camaraderie and friendship. So we have this wonderful wheel with our house crests, and oh, perfect.
Yeah, get it whenever you're ready.
You're gonna get the magic computer, and you will just press, and that will spin the wheel with an amazing drum roll, and it will determine what house you are sorted into for the rest of your lives. And then you will get a free t-shirt. Okay, do that to do first.
I just mean like in.
I think just hit it, or
Enter,
space
click
bar.
the
God
button.
only knows, yeah. Let's
Maybe
Well,
click
not
the, like the mouse.
touch the touchpad.
Oh,
Okay, let's go.
I was excited for the lottery.
Gezellig.
Awesome. That's the House of Camaraderie led by Jessica Hitchcock.
oh, God, right?
It's like applause, but I think something weird happened.
Audio.
Oh, 2 Gezelligs, how exciting, okay. Disclaimer, we are actually out of Gezellig shirts. I have a shirt for every other house. I will work on getting those to you as soon as I can, but welcome, thank you, and that's all, thank you.
That was fun.
You said it, don't like.
Okay. We know accolades will be next month at the board meeting. And we'll move into community comments.
There are none out there. You did receive one written one for acknowledgement.
Has everybody received this? All right. Take this into consideration. And thank you. And there, you said there was none out there in the.
There is none out in our basket, no.
Reports. Assistant Business Manager Josh Cook.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I do have an enrollment report for you, but fiscal report September is most business offices' busiest time of the year. We are completing open enrollment for everybody medical. Make sure all positions are in. Our auditors will be, we start our audit on Monday, and I'm in communications to figure out when the auditor will be here for their field day. So we'll be starting our audit, and we've been doing audit prep. And have been working closely with the administrators on getting in our new grant applications and our grant plans for the years and everything like that. So Any questions on the financials before I get to the presentation? Alright, so I'm going to pull it up, that way if anybody is online, they can see it, and audience members can hopefully see it as well. So, yes, we will start with this one here, and what I'm going to be starting with is kind of what's happening in the state of Oregon in enrollment. I highlighted what I kind of thought was the biggest statement on this first page here, which is that Oregon Public Schools now serve 35,237 fewer students than they did in 2019-20, so prior to the pandemic. 6.1% decrease throughout the state. And that graph kind of shows it, and it elaborates a little bit more on it. But we hear other districts talk about it. I know I've been talking about it, and it is not just a rumor. It is a big impact that our state is facing.
A challenge to this is when the legislators are deciding about where they need to distribute money, and they know that there's 6% fewer students. Some of them are inclined to think, well, you don't need as much money to run schools, even though we can account for our costs and show that the cost of running schools is still going up. That right there creates one of the biggest hurdles in our advocacy efforts.
Yes. Next page here, again, I found pretty interesting. So what it outlines is that there is 197 school districts in Oregon, and this is the Oregon.gov's annual report from 23-24. So they're talking about 23-24 when they say there's 197 school districts. However, the majority of students in Oregon attend large school districts. So on the top half there, you can see even though 54% of the school districts in the state are ones that have between 1 and 999 students, they only house 7% of the student population. The 9% of the districts that hold more than 7,000 students house 54% of the student population. So the next,
So the interesting advocacy effort there is we have political lobbying capital. We have the most students. You need to listen to us. We have the loudest voice. And more than half the districts are like Streetsport, that presents a bit of a challenge that we also need to be remembered. Don't just assume Portland Public and Salem Kaiser need to make all the decisions for everybody because they don't represent or they look like us.
the next page, I pulled kind of some demographics to maybe shed a little bit of a light on why this is happening. You know, there can be lots of speculations, but in the first paragraph there, they talk about how there is a massive demographic change in Oregon's population. So in 2023, it was the first time elderly people, 65 and over, exceeded the number of children, so 18 and under. And that happened in 2023. In 2000, the elderly population was half the amount of children that we had. So all of a sudden, those kind of flipped in a pretty quick time frame. I won't touch too much on the 18 to 64. You know, there's kind of some interesting information, but I want to touch more on school age because education, and that's kind of where we look. And again, I highlighted what I thought was kind of the most powerful statement in there is with that term, There's expected to be a consistent decline by 1.3% annually in the school-age population. So, Oregon.gov, Oregon, they're not thinking that this is going to change anytime soon. This decline in enrollment is going to continue. I have a graph here. So what this is we have been talking solely like bodies so far, student bodies. This is ADMW. So some of our population within districts gets what they call like an extra weight. So they might be more than a 1. And that can be, our houseless students and other demographics like that. So this is what this is referring to. And at the back of this, I did provide definitions of like ADMW and everything. And ADMW is what is the main driver for our state school fund. That's what they use, is the weighted. So you can see here back in 2018-19 was, it's either that or 22-23. I have the hard numbers on the next one, was kind of our peak. But for the most part, you can see a steady decline in the Reed Support enrollment over the last 7 years, roughly. In this next slide, I wanted to look kind of at a larger view of this. And what I did here was I took all but 2 of our ESPs and I got their ADMW. So in ESPs, ADMW is all their school districts in their region. So this kind of breaks out what a region's ADMW looks like. North Central is one of the few that has seen an increase, but they are an online charter. And online charters, have kind of seen some increases. So I couldn't tell you
North
exactly.
Central, I'm thinking like Wasco, right up there on I-84. And some of those very small rural schools up there have brought in these virtual online schools and tripled and quadrupled their population of online students.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a trend? To me, it is. That's absolutely what's going on. Consolidate the bigger schools and the bigger populations and get rid of the small schools.
North Bend was our closest online charter for a while, and there's actually shrunk due to competition by thirds. I think they're a lot smaller than they used to be, and others have competed away some of those virtual students.
Yeah. And as you go to the right, it kind of shows the ESPs that have the biggest impact. So on the top, Douglas, which is technically the county we are, but I would say, which I'll get to there, South Coast is more of the region that we kind of truly reside in and, reflects us more accurately. And the South Coast has seen a ADMW decrease of 16.73. They are the highest impacted in the state. I also have a ADMW total, so I totaled all the other districts, and the top one there was 685,000, decreased to 647. So the ADMW in the state, decreased close to 40,000, 5.53%, right? South Coast is almost triple that figure. So not only is the state, facing a student decline, but our region seems to be uniquely facing it at a very significantly higher impact. And then you can see Reed Sports, ADMW there at 13%.
Our enrollment numbers this year?
looks this morning like we're 532.
The other day was like 570.
571 was the 10-day drop number. The 10-day drop, the student is not enrolled for 10 consecutive days, not attending for 10 consecutive days, you have to drop them from the rolls. When we register students for the previous year, we roll over everybody. So anybody new coming in will register, that adds to us. But we know that after the first 10 days of school, some of the students who we rolled over won't actually come into school, something happened, they moved, whatever, and then we have to drop them. And so we wait for those first 10 days to clean up what is more representative of who's actually in the school.
So, I mean, we'll be taking these, this data for Reed Sport as we've done in the past, and what the new enrollment that we got, and what that's going to mean for our state school fund, budgeting for the future for us and everything. We did predict a decline, but the 532 is looking to be a bit more than we predicted. Last year I mentioned I get to go in, I have to submit a report in the winter of every year. So super early, guessing what our student enrollment is going to be. And that's what they base our initial state school fund allocations off of.
Was it 560?
It was 560 the year before. We either did 550 or 555 for this year. I'll have to double check. But I do get to go in and revise that. So what that's going to mean is it's going to impact our state school fund. They don't recalculate that until about February or March. So there has to be a little bit of estimation on my part. Last year I talked about I put in a negative 425,000 number, right? And that ended up being really close. I think we were in that 400 to 425 was the impact we did see last year. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to plan for that again this year because AD&W, the state school fund, does tell you the total revenue. They say an AD&W is worth about, it's just a little over 11,000. It's like 11.2, 11.3 in there. But if you're talking 20 students less, you're talking close to 250,000 or so. Pretty significant. And then we have our May adjustment because then they get the actual numbers. So we'll be looking at what that number is potentially like. I would expect us, unfortunately, to be planning at $300,000 to $400,000, $300,000 to $450,000 difference in our state school fund.
That would they'll take that.
We won't spend it, and we won't make a claim against it, so they're not having to take it away. It's going to have to start actively planning, spend less, consolidate more, and by not spending it.
In the general fund, you mean, like cap projects or whatever?
Yeah, in the general fund, yeah. So
100.
So yeah, it's difficult news, but it's something that we are trying to monitor closely and kind of gives an idea to everyone. Like I said, not only what the state is facing, but what our region seems to uniquely be facing. I meet with business managers, and today I heard one business manager say, and I won't say the district and they ain't get into details, but they are actually having to close and consolidate. And I think I heard of another district in the state, so one or two districts, this year are looking at closing, like a building and consolidating and stuff.
They're doing that within the district though, right? They're not going outside the district.
Right. So I didn't dive into yet, it's hard to get, why this is specifically happening in our region, but I did think it was good news to share. So,
Yeah.
questions about anything?
What are we gonna do?
We're going to have to talk about some of the things that we would normally spend money on, not spending money on.
But the bigger picture. And to get enrollment, it's either we go AI and computer schools, right? Or we get people here, kids. Right? That's the city council. That's bringing in companies.
Yeah, and it's tough, how do we get, why is this happening to our region so much? How do we improve the South Coast area? Is that because of jobs? Do people not like the coast? Like, how much can we control?
So any update on the new developments around town for housing?
When I spoke to city manager and mayor about a week ago, they reported to me that the owner is trying to put together enough money to connect infrastructure, whatever the correct terminology is for, the water sewer out to the project area so that the builder will be able to connect to the units that would be built. So there's got the person doing the building, the owner of the property, and the city having to be able to get all their parts together. And I think I understand that the owner has to generate enough money or figure out a way to get the connection from the city to the builder.
Where does that go, Ken? Does
But-
it stop right at the road there? So
Well, so any new development has to be, by the developer. It has to be brought up to city standards and then the city takes it over.
It really isn't gonna do us any good, because the people buying those houses are retired. They don't have children that are gonna go to our schools. I mean, they're coming to the beautiful Oregon coast so they can, enjoy the retirement. And, their kids are grown and they're not bringing in their grandkids or nothing. And until, our people in Salem get their,
Priorities straight.
until they get it figured out, they'd rather see our forest burn than log them. So, that's not gonna help with jobs. I heard another mill in Bandon shutting down. I feel bad for Bandon, but,
South
and-
Coast,
yeah, we have some people living in Reedsport, right clear down there to work that mill.
South Coast
Yeah.
Mill is closing.
Yeah. So, it's one thing after another, and, and I get
And taxes are going up.
sick to my stomach watching all those train cars go by loaded with logs and wondering where they're coming from and where they're going, and they're gonna go to Tuesday and get loaded on a ship and go to Japan, so.
We did have the developer of the golf course that they're talking about, he came to the, he's the spokesman for, he was the actual developer. He came to the Lions meeting on last Thursday and spoke, and he did say that they're progressing along, and they're talking about having like 230 housing just for their employees. And so hopefully that will bring in some working folks and.
Is there a timeline?
Well, he said by next fall they should be breaking ground, but I still find that hard to believe. They still have some processes that they have to jump through for 408s and stuff with the Corps and wetland delineation. There's a lot involved there. I'm not sure that they've gotten, and they haven't got one of the tribes okay, so there's still some stuff
So
going on there.
maybe I'll be able to play, me and Josh can play it when I'm 80.
Better keep your game sharp, Bob.
Man, thank you, Josh.
It's a hard thing to present.
It is, and it's tough because you always hope, like, oh, this is gonna turn around. If the state's telling you, that the population just isn't gonna turn around, it's tough, as John was saying. It's hard for education to get funding. They think we don't need as much, but expenses continue to go up and we get less student count, and it doesn't mean less costs necessarily.
But they'll put more bike paths in Portland,
So it's just hard to always predict you know, when you're working in a less revenue thing.
60 to 65, 70% of your cost, your budget is always in staffing. And you put them in staffing because you're serving the kids. And so levels of cuts, you ultimately get to a point where you have to start looking at positions. And every time you make a choice about a position, it's a service to student or students. It's the other way around it. And as we look to consolidate, put more work, the same work has to happen. The state regulations, Division 22, accountability grants, the requirements don't change. And how we make those things happen, as we have to make serious considerations about fewer people, is very difficult. And then you put more work on people who are already feeling that they've got a lot on their plate, and they do. So we're going to have to just be paying a lot of attention to where we're spending money, why we're spending it there, and could we do it a different way or save those dollars. As you go by the high school on 22nd, the big pile of dirt out there with the black cones around it is our diesel tank for our boilers. And right now we've got a couple of 55-gallon barrels we keep full of diesel to run the heating system in the high school, because right now we don't need that much. But as we're trying to fix that tank, hopefully it's fixable. It's still an expensive fix project. And if we don't do that, we won't have heat. So that isn't a project we get to put off or wait on. And as our buildings continue to deteriorate, that facilities committee come up with a lot of recommendations for needed fixes. And every year you don't spend money on those projects, you are delaying that need, and the deterioration continues. So you have to put money into those projects responsibly. And again, you're not putting money into people. We're keeping kids warm with keeping the boilers going, but it's not directly servicing kids the way our staff do.
Is it leaking?
Leaking, pressure, fuel's not getting through the line so that there's either a leak, an air leak, a vacuum. I don't know diesel tanks, Bob. They're having to come out and get inside the tank and do some kind of a test to see what's going on. We've tried things on the outside, and now we're having to do it from inside the tank. Empty it and specialized work and get a report on it when you're doing it.
Would having volunteers come in with the buildings to help do some of the paper pushing type things, I'll take that off the teachers' backs?
I think when teachers know and can plan for help from volunteers, they appreciate it. Not everybody needs the same type of help,
right.
But I think if you know a particular staff member and are in conversation with them, and they would appreciate help, get registered as a volunteer, get your background check, and love to have people in the buildings.
Yes, anything would help, wouldn't it?
Yeah. We have to be careful because with some things we have people be more employees, but there are things we can do. And I'm sure if the staff member wants that help, it'd be appreciated.
Any other questions for Josh? Anything else, Josh?
That's everything for today.
Superintendent's report.
I'm going to try to be a little shorter. Integrated guidance is one of the main non-competitive grants of money we get from the state for our state school fund operation. What we need to do is be sure that every year we're paying attention to how we're spending those dollars, what we're spending it on, and making sure they meet certain requirements that the state has for us. Currently, those dollars go towards things like professional development of staff. IRRE is the Institute for Research and Reform in Education, is that right? And that's a big investment for us, but it academically is very important for our staff to get that every year and grow and develop those skills so we can apply them to our students. The cost of our SRO comes out of integrated guidance dollars. Our CTE program, Project Lead the Way, those are a lot of elective classes that we have and the staffing of those. Some of our service staff, so we have guidance counseling, nursing, school psychologist dollars came from there, and early literacy that has kind of been the new hot topic we've been hearing about. That's part of those dollars. So as we're spending early literacy monies, we have to be sure we're targeting K through 3rd grade literacy curriculum, purchase of curriculum, more professional development of those staff in best practices. So we are continuing to do those activities. You have our report and our integrated application that we turned in. In the action item, I'm going to ask you to approve the 25-27 biennium plan that we've got presented. And here's the short version of all this. We are a small school district. We have a staff who cares deeply about the students that we serve. We know our students, and we take care of them at the level they need with what they need. I would fear working in a Portland public and not knowing who people are and having to develop a program, kind of like casting a net out, hoping that I catch everybody that I need with the program I'm trying to deliver. Whereas here, when we know the families, we know the students, and we can be a lot more personalized with the education, I just see a lot more value to a small school district and the way we serve. I'd entertain any questions on part 8 or 1 or 2, the guidance report, the binding report, before we get into cell phone. About the cell phone policy.
How did you choose the team members for the
I want to be efficient in the planning. We use some support from the ESD to be sure that what we're talking about and turning in for submission is going to be compliant and meet the requirements that the state is wanting from us. So Laurel Smalley, the name you probably don't recognize on that list, is at the ESD and is a good support person for us to be sure that things we're going to spend money on and plan are going to meet the requirements of the state.
Any other questions for John?
Yeah, how come Rachel is a team member and Josh is when he's not in their district?
Because as we're talking about the money we're going to be receiving and how we're going to spend it and how we're going to fit it into the budget, the business manager has to know the planning.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Rachel is the business manager, right?
Right. Last year, as we were doing this and transitioning, Josh has more to do with it. And one of the functions Josh has in Rachel's department is managing the non-competitive state grants. So that's one of his assignment roles in her department.
I still visit the district weekly. and then oversighting grants and everything like that. So I have more involvement with the grants.
I was just asking.
Yeah, no,
Not that he doesn't like you.
yeah.
You won't give me any strokes. No.
So again, I'll ask you to approve that biennium plan, action item A. The other item I'll ask you to do take action on is going to be the cell phone policy. So this document here, the third page is just a couple of words and letters. We're only looking at 2 pages of draft here. This is boilerplate from Oregon School Board Association. This is designed as it's written to meet all the requirements of the governor's executive order regarding cell phones. There are a couple parts here where, as a board, you have some flexibility and need to make some decisions. So when you look under the title there, personal electronic devices, in that first paragraph, you see a couple areas with box brackets. And if I'm reading, it says student, and then it has in box brackets, possession or use of personal electronic device. So box brackets are areas that are optional, and when they put words in box brackets, they're there and can apply weight or meaning, intended or unintended, for your policy. So student use of a cell phone versus student possession of a cell phone. If a student is in possession at their locker, they could be in violation of your policy. Student use of a personal electronic device would carry different weight. They could bring it into the school building, they could put it in their locker for the day, at the end of the day, take it out of their locker and go home, have possession, and not necessarily violate that first part of your policy. I think the phrase possession or is not helpful for what you want to accomplish. I think we want to talk about a policy that talks about the governor's requirement for electronic devices, and that would be their use of that from the starting bell to the ending bell. So I would recommend striking the possession or bracket in the policy. Reading a little bit further, there's optional language, and my general philosophy on policy. The more you write out, the more specific it becomes, and the more specifically it has to be interpreted. We tend to benefit in small school districts from a little bit of flexibility. Year to year, our staff could change, the skills they bring, the jobs they do could change, and flexibility in how we go about the function of providing education is a lot more important in smaller systems, smaller districts, than it would be in larger regimented places. So I think the entire part about personal electronic devices can be used when students are not on school grounds under supervision should be struck. It is implied enough in the rest of the policy that saying more, I don't think has enough value to what you're trying to accomplish here.
But why don't we just say no? Cell phones aren't allowed, period.
Right.
And so, why do we need all this other stuff? Because
the executive order says we have to write a policy about it. That's one of the parts of it.
no wonder why people are leaving Oregon.
Moving through the second paragraph, the box bracket around the number 2 is just simply there. We'll pull it out when you clean up the policy. It references the bottom part here where we see footnotes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Under the big letter draft A is the 3 exceptions. So personal electronic devices may be used when use complies with the terms of in Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. Part 1 refers to the medical provider's note. That's required in the order. And Part 2 refers to the student's IEP or Section 504 plans. That is also required. You have an option on number 3, and I'm going to discourage number 3 language being part of this policy. The number 3 language talks about the written exemption can also occur based on a request received, and with the AR, and administration will respond to request within 10 days. This is the you can do whatever you want allowance in the executive order. And having too much room to give one person this rule, another person that rule, is going to make it harder for the school to say, no, we're not allowed. Every time they come up and say, well, so-and-so can do this because so-and-so's got this written out, it's gonna make it a jigsaw puzzle for the administrators in the office to try to deal with. Keeping track of who's allowed to have a phone at a certain time on a certain day or under a certain condition. So students with 504, students with medical conditions, a lot simpler to identify and not have to worry about all the other plethora of variables that number 3 could allow. So excluding that language is my recommendation to the board, and of course you'll have to decide. The next paragraph that finishes page 1. You have 3 choices and you need to pick one of those. My recommendation is the second one. So it would read, personal electronic devices may be kept by students in lockers or backpacks, but personal electronic devices are not to be stored on the student's person or in the student's clothing. The third one would allow it to be on their person at all times, which I think would become a difficulty for teachers and administrators to address, particularly at the high school. It might become an easy distraction for students. Number 1, we do not possess storage pouches or devices like Yonder products that would be what number 1 is referring to. Just for information, a Yonder pouch would cost about $20 per unit. Each student would have to have one, so 500 kids times $20, and while they secure the device for the day, it just becomes an expense. So I think we can do it the way we've been doing it without the added cost. So are there any questions on the recommendations for page 1? And you guys will have time to discuss it.
I just have are kids allowed backpacks in classrooms now?
At the high school, they were not allowed.
Okay, that's what I meant.
They put in their lockers or their vehicle. Page 2. The first paragraph refers to box brackets, detention, Saturday school, etc. That needs to be there to make that sentence work, and my next recommendation will kind of explain more. Underneath that paragraph, there is an entire section of policy that is box brackets, which means it's optional. It lists out steps 1 through 4 that would be the process that a school would go through in dealing with a student with a cell phone. I recommend not including that in the policy, because again, if the offices need to make adjustments to what's going on in their handbooks, when it's written in policy, they don't possess a lot of ability to make change. And when it's not in the policy, the school is still going to have to develop step 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever is appropriate to deal with students who are violating this policy. My recommendation to you, that entire section, steps may include 1, 2, 3, 4, but you do not include that in policy, and leave that to the buildings to perform where and as needed. Finally, at the bottom of that page, policy takes effect January 1st. We will update that date with the date to reflect when you adopt the policy. We started this at the start of the school year, so it will be immediate for us to enact your policy once you complete it. Do you have any questions about my recommendations on this before you discuss? And after you'll discuss it, we get to the action items. Sorry.
So with the 4 that you are recommending not to include, we're just going to put a statement in there that it'll be up to the building administrator?
Just leave it out. In the absence of language, we will have to have something. people are gonna say, what are you gonna do if we bring a cell phone? You're gonna have to have that answer in the handbooks. You're gonna have to say, cell phone violation, first step, second step. We're gonna have to do it. It's a practical reality. I would just strike it entirely and leave it out.
Me personally, as a board member, I'd like to have a little bit of an idea of how we're gonna do that before it gets, you know, I have a screaming parent coming into the
Sure.
board meeting going, what in the, you know, type thing.
Right now, I guarantee you, they have a set of steps that they're following, and I do not know off the top of my head what they are. I could bring that back. We could ask them if they want to try to share off the top of their head. I didn't prep them to bring that material with them. So, do you know off the top of your head, Jerry, what the steps are when you find a student with a cell phone, or do you want to wait and do that later?
I have fairly close. I mean, the first one's a warning. The second one, is a detention. I believe it's 30 minutes. Then it's, the third one's an hour. Then there's a Friday school. After step 3, the parent has to come get the phone. The student, parent has to come get it.
Does that satisfy your questions?
Yeah, it gives me a pretty good idea. Thank you.
Now, one thing that is not really clear in there, but is a reality, this policy, we're not allowed to take away students' educational time if a student strictly and only is violating this policy. They have their phone on. Teacher finds it, teacher says, give me your phone, they hand it over. We can't suspend them from school, do anything that would take away their educational time. So anything we do under the executive order has to follow that obligation. Now, student becomes a behavior issue beyond that. You're not taking my phone and gets into it, starts flipping desks. We deal with them differently because those behaviors are covered by rules and procedures we have in place. So while a student might initiate a problem because of a cell phone, taking it further beyond a cell phone violation might put itself into some other behavioral realm, which could be a suspension, which could be an exclusion from their educational time. And that's always the kind of worst case scenario, is what's going to happen if it gets out of control. But my understanding as of the other day, only a couple of students had brought cell phones to school and there had been no problem, and there wasn't really hardship with this. It's my opinion that because they're all in the same boat, they're all dealing with no cell phone, they're all on equal footing, it's not really bothering them. There's no fear of missing out because they know that nobody else is online at the same time, and they can all focus.
So were they told this at the beginning of the year?
I asked one of the principals a couple of days ago, and that was the report. There's only been a couple of them, very minor infractions. There was no rioting in the streets.
So is this your recommendation, the one that says, the Reed Sports School District on the top, is this your recommendation?
No,
No?
no, this is what we have already.
There's some of those policies are in place, and having those just generally be aware of other background. This policy that is the OSBA model sample is what we need to complete because of the executive order we received. When you get to the part about action, if you want to take this as a first draft with my recommendations, I will bring it back in your October meeting with all my recommendations instilled, and you can see the polished look, and at that point you can still make changes. We could have additional meetings. We have to have a policy by the end of October. Have an October meeting coming up in the early part. If we needed a additional meeting to get a third reading done just on this policy, that is the prerogative of the board. So we're doing well for time here, and I can fix it up as recommended. We can talk about the changes you'd rather see instead. I can bring it back with my recommendations clean. there are several options in front of you tonight.
I would like to see a cleaned up version.
Yeah, if we could get that, like, maybe in a couple weeks, so we can have a couple weeks to look it over, at least a week to look it over and.
You want it
Rushing here.
cleaned up, given a week prior to the October meeting, or do you want to have a meeting between now and then for the purpose of adopting a policy?
So we have it cleaned up, we have a meeting, so we can adopt it. I don't,
I think we can clean this up in a couple days. You have a week to look at it. If you want to have a meeting real quick, you sure you need a deadline?
Send it out on email.
We can do that. Clean up, send out. When would you want to do a next meeting to adopt this? Or do you want to wait till the October?
Well, we're within our time frame if we just wait for the October.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we can handle it at that October meeting.
So we'll clean this up and have it out in approximately a week. It depends on office staff workload, and you'll have it in time to have it plenty reviewed before your October meeting. Okay. So you will not need to take any action on that item tonight. You can pull B off of your agenda when you get to that point.
Any other new reports, John?
Nope. I was not shorter than Josh, sorry.
So can you give us a little more information on the storage tank for the boilers, the diesel tank? What, I mean, is there, you have a price figure yet, or, the estimate of how bad it is, or?
I know some of the initials were around the like 12 to 15,000 mark we just kind of have like the inspection and stuff done to figure out what we're gonna have to do next. So that's just kind of the initial part of it.
Is that repair gonna have, are we gonna have to dip into our contingency for that repair, or?
Capital improvement.
Yeah, the you know, those transfers that I've been budgeting the last couple of years will be able to cover that.
No idea what the repair cost would be though, that's just the assessment.
That's the assessment, like the draining of the tank and stuff like that, so we're, still waiting to see what we're actually gonna have to do.
Is it fixable, is it not fixable? If it's not fixable, we may need to take a serious look at it. Do we try to convert to a propane system? Because the cost of the replacement might really make it an important thing for us to look at, but converting sounds very expensive too. I don't want to quote a number incorrectly and be too low. It sounded super expensive, and I immediately groaned and about the capital improvement fund. $100,000.
Where's you get a quote for that?
I don't remember the vendor. Mike is working on the project.
Yeah.
Any possibilities, thinking outside the box? I know I have a fisherman friend that had a big, he didn't want to take the tank out of his, the refrigeration out of his boat, and he had a line with something, and to save himself some money and some time. Is there a way that we could look into something like that?
I think when we deal with repair projects, because we carry such liability for the outcome, and it's not our personal vessel perhaps, I worry about doing something that wouldn't be standardized project, repair, work, procedure.
Carson own that tank, or is it ours?
Bob, you're asking great questions, and I'm not prepared with answers for them.
Because if it's our tank, we should get rid of it, because there is a liability environmentally that it's just.
I'll ask Michael to give me a written report for our October meeting, either we're up to at that point, what the process has been so far.
Any chance that the shop class is gonna put a coat of paint on that huge eyesore we got at the football field before our first home game?
I think they're gonna change change around the pipeline with the material to get it going the correct direction first. I know they've got metal for the roof. I don't know what material they've got for siding or if it's just a paint job. But it's a slow process, but they're still several steps away from completing it. We're dealing with students in class times and a little bit here, a little bit there. And I know Matt went out and bought quite a bit of material this summer to continue the project. So having materials is a little part of the factor also for him and the students.
I see that there was a deal put out about the shop class going to do a concrete project over at Rome Park. And maybe we ought to finish one project with the shop class.
The construction class was not initially invested in this. They've been invested in that. I think they're being asked to help with this one over here because of just the manpower to get it done.
I think there was money donated specifically for this project too, wasn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else for John? All right. Thank you, John. Consent agenda. These are routine actions that typically require no discussion, such as approval of the previous meeting minutes and the acceptance of donations. And they're listed. I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion
Go ahead.
to approve the consent agenda number 10 as approved, A, B, and C, and number 1.
I second.
Motion made by Bonnie Brewer, seconded by Bob to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Approved unanimously. Now we're to action. Approve an integrated guidance 2005 to 2027 biennial plan.
I would recommend that you accept it as presented in your packet.
I would entertain a motion. If there's no questions.
Make a motion to approve the integrated guidance 25-27 biennial plan as written.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Tim to approve that. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, passed unanimously. And we are going to hold off on action item B so that John can get that policy cleaned up a little bit, re-present it, and come back to that. Discussion items. Oregon School Board Association Annual Convention. Registration starts tomorrow. If you plan on attending, it's in Portland, Thursday, November 6th through Saturday, November 8th. Need to get a hold of Sherman if you're planning on wanting to attend that. There's a pre-conference on Thursday of that, November 6th. And Sharma, you don't need to know tonight, just get a hold of you in the next couple of days.
Correct. I need to have a number before next week.
Thank you very much. Community comments, anything on the board that you can see, John?
Nothing in the chat.
Thank you.
All right, let's move down to board member comments. Kim?
Just want to say thanks to the hospital and the Reachport Main Street program for the first 5K salmon run. It was great turnout, and kids and parents, and it was nice for the first one, and it went really well. So thanks to everybody that was involved in that, and don't forget about this Saturday. There's rib cook-off at the Moose, and Jones will be competing against each other. So come on down at noon and get you some ribs. And
By the way, all the money raised on that goes to different organizations and programs within Reedsport, so.
Canine Shelter, and I don't know what all of them are.
Spirit of Christmas, Christmas in July, Senior Center. And we're looking at a national sponsor next year, and Kingsford Briquettes. Of course, they want to make it 10 times bigger than it is, so, you know, we'll be looking at moving it to Rainbow Plaza. And
There's more teams this year. I think there's 6 teams this year, I believe. I think there's 6 teams this year.
7.
7 now?
Yeah.
I heard there was 6, so that's good.
Yeah. And of course, the same guy that won last year is going to win again this year.
What's gonna happen, Jones?
Would that
Okay, Bonnie.
Well, I just want to wish everybody a good year. Lots of little ICUs at the high school, and a lot of kids anxious K through 6. And the staff, you know, a lot of work ahead of you. But you can do it. I know you can.
Mrs. Lasky, is my new house, or my house here from last year good this year?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, if you need a new one, let me know, but
Oh, no.
nothing has changed.
Cindy?
Don't have nothing new yet.
You said you were gonna come in,
I
get
know.
on the board, guns
I know.
a-blazing, and have all, you know, what happened?
I was gonna say too, I hope the school year goes good, but Bonnie took that one from me.
Okay. Future agendas, strategic planning listening session Wednesday, October 8th. October board meeting, Wednesday, October 8th. HPO movie night and listening session, Thursday, October 9th. Ooh, I like D.
Look at that.
Chili cinnamon rolls and listening session, Friday, October 10th. Where is that gonna be, sir?
Chairman Jones, the 8th, 9th, and 10th are all part of strategic planning. Our hope with having activities on the 9th and 10th, there'll be activities that families might normally attend, and getting them accessible to us will allow us to ask a couple survey questions and blend that into strategic planning, because we'll bring people together. So the 10th is a football game, and so having chili cinnamon rolls prior to a football game is kind of a Reedsport thing anyway, but we might have a better turnout for that game. And by the way, we would ask some questions of folks as they're going.
Where's that going to be at, Joe?
Football game.
I
So
don't-
there'll be,
I don't think that's a football game day. We changed our schedule. We went to 6 men, I think.
it was, this was a
I
abandoned
think-
game. Oh, Lord.
Chili.
3, 17, and 24.
Yeah, 3/7/24. Sorry.
Rats. Yeah, we went from a 9-man football, 2A league to a 1A, 6-man football league. This was an abandoned home game. We said it would be a good night to get a crowd together, but that is not a schedule. So we're gonna have to do something on the 10th. We'll need to get with our facilitator, rethink this one a little.
So we're a smaller football team this year?
Yeah. Turnout in general for athletics has gone down as well. And I see that trend in other schools. I'm not sure why, Bonnie. We'll have to have something, we're still gonna need an activity to bring people out, and if we've got food, usually we can get people to come to us. Depends how far travel is that night, we might need to rethink. So we'll get with our facilitator, revisit with the 10th, because she's coming from the other side of the state, doing 3 consecutive days, she'll stay in town, but can keep her going. We don't want to have her running back and forth multiple times and collecting data. So
that's coming up pretty fast, so.
yeah, I thank you for catching that, Jerry. We'll have to get some corrections. Sharman's hearing that, so.
We might have something for you.
So is item G, is that where we sit down with the city council and we kind of knock heads together?
The meeting on the 8th, they're invited, and I would encourage them to continue to be part of the process as we go through, but that October 8th meeting, your board meeting will be the first one they're invited to come and collaborate at 4 o'clock. I apologize for interrupting, Mr. Jones.
That's quite all right, thank you. We needed to know that. Anything else? Good to the order.
I think the Reef Golf Tournament is.
Pardon?
The Reef Golf Tournament is this Sunday. The Reef Education Foundation.
You have all that grass and no cows.
Bring them on over, guys.
Tried that one time, didn't work out real well.
I'm sure Rick Misco would appreciate that.
I would like to have a shout out to Vice President Adams and my dean yesterday. We had an incident after school with a semi-lockdown, and they were on point. Very well done.
Thank you, sir. And thank you. And John, you'll get us that information with the cleaned up deal and also with the strategic plan thing?
October draft will be on your, cell phone draft will be on your October agenda. We'll get email information out about how the 10th is going to change, if it's going to change times, or what we'll try to do to coordinate the event, or maybe Jerry can get us a football game that night.
We'll get the cell phone draft before the.
The cell phone draft will come out probably in about a week, depending how quick our office can process it. That's easy.
Mrs. Watts, Mrs. Adams, you've been real quiet tonight. Is there anything that you'd like to say?
No, it's almost bedtime for me.
Oh.
No, it's been really nice. We've started some high dosage tutoring at the elementary school that we're super proud of, and kids are working hard, so hopefully we get it there.
And Mr. Cook, you're gonna make sure that we get some information on building my new gymnasium for our grade school here soon, on that bond. Yeah, I thought we were gonna slip away without getting, addressed on that, though. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for coming, putting up with us.
Yeah, if you want to, let me know. Mr. Bob.